Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Newshour, India's voice to the world. I'm Mark Lynn. Namaskar. Coming up in the next hour. World powers contemplate over Syria's future a day after Assad's fall. US demands Assad's accountability. Russia says it will discuss the status of its Syrian bases with the new government. Israel consolidates positions in the Golan Heights. Prime Minister Modi inaugurates Rising Rajasthan Global Investment Summit, highlights India's inevitable rise as a major economy. India's Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri conveys New Delhi's concerns over attacks on minorities to the Bangladesh government. And Ding Leren produces magic on the 64th checkered squares to draw level with challenger Gukesh as the World Chess Championship match is tantalizingly poised. Just 2 rounds to go. The day after Damascus was taken over by rebel forces, an uneasy calm prevails there. People feel that brighter days lie ahead of them, but clearly Syria's future is work in progress. The HTS-led militia is trying to consolidate its positions in parts of Syria where they still need to win the trust of the people. But people in Damascus, for the moment, they are looking forward to brighter days ahead. Let's look at this report. The new Syrian flag, with 3 stars instead of 2, being hoisted at the Syrian embassy in Moscow. Ironically, it is somewhere in Russia that the ousted leader Assad has received asylum. Syrians gathered in the streets of Damascus on Monday, a day after rebels had seized the capital. They showed a sense of liberation after 13 years of civil war and 54 years of a single family rule.
Thank God we came back. People returned to their homes, those who saw their families after 13 years of not seeing them, and those who returned to their homes. We smell the incense of Damascus that we were deprived of.
Drone footage of the Umayyad Mosque after former President Assad had fled the capital. Assad's fall was surprisingly fast. The lightning advance of militia spearheaded by Hayaat Tahrir al-Sham, HTS, a former Al-Qaeda affiliate, brought about one of the biggest turning points in West Asian history. A former Syrian army official now, on the other side, puts things into perspective.
Today, after 13 years of revolution, thank God, Syria is liberated and free of the tyrant. People of Syria experience joy they deserve after all these sacrifices and all this destruction. The Syrian people deserve to live with freedom and dignity that it paid its price with blood and sacrifices.
Damascus residents confess that they lived in fear over the last 55 years. Here's 54-year-old Yasser al-Ammar.
My father was in the army. He used to scare us by telling us that the walls have ears. We would not come and tell us about what was happening or what the crime regime was doing Hama or elsewhere. He would say the walls have ears, and we did not understand him then. But if they had heard him, he would have been executed.
As people go about their business, coming to terms with the new reality, the world watches developments. With Assad's fall, a key stronghold of Iranian and Russian influence in the region seems to have disappeared. Turkey, which has long opposed Assad, gains strength. Israel sees this as a result of its actions against Assad's Iranian-backed allies and has taken up positions near the Druze village of Majd al-Shams in the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights. Bureau Report, DD India. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov confirmed that the removed Syrian President Bashar al-Assad was given asylum in Russia, saying that the decision was made personally by President Vladimir Putin. Russia's RT correspondent Mariana Kosareva has sent us this report.
Things are developing fast in Syria, with the country's former president now in Moscow with his family members after being granted asylum based on humanitarian grounds. And it comes, of course, after Bashar al-Assad stepped down and handed over power to the armed opposition there, following a surprise offensive from the opposition-held town of Idlib in the north of the country. Now, jihadists have also, other militant groups as well, have seized various parts of the country, including Aleppo, Hama, Homs, also towns on the border with Lebanon. We've heard since then that the Israeli military has been instructed to establish complete control over the buffer zone on the Syrian border in the Golan Heights. As well, we're seeing that other opposition groups are taking parts of the country. The West, of course, has welcomed the overthrow in the country. We had the UN Secretary General saying that now the fate of Syria is in the hands of the Syrian people. But it will be interesting to observe whether these jihadists will be able to unite the country and be able to unite all these competing factions and bring them under control.
Well, leaders across the globe have reacted to the swift change of guard in Syria, each pledging to work with the new government to determine a path of peace and progress. But a lot lies beneath the surface, unfinished business in a sense. Now, the US wants Assad prosecuted. The Russians want to secure their bases. And Israel, as we said, has occupied positions left vacant by Syrian forces in the Golan Heights.
Fall of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's regime prompted a flurry of international reactions from leaders around the globe. US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said the world was surprised by the speed of Bashar al-Assad's fall from power.
I think the entire international community was surprised to see that the opposition forces moved as quickly as they did. The speed at which that unfolded was surprising, I think, to most everybody in the international community.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu hailed the ousting of Bashar al-Assad as an historic day.
This is a historic day for the Middle East. The collapse of the Assad regime, the tyranny in Damascus, offers great opportunity, but also is fraught with significant dangers. This collapse is a direct result of our forceful action against Hezbollah and Iran, Assad's main supporters. It set off a chain reaction of all those who want to free themselves from this tyranny and its oppression.
The Kremlin said Syria was subject to extreme instability, and it was too early to speak about the future of Russian bases in the country. For Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan, Syria has entered a new era.
Bundan sonraki süreçte
we want to see a new Syria that will have good relations with its neighbors and add peace and stability to its region. We are ready to provide the necessary support for this.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer welcomed the overthrow of Assad, adding it was important to find a political way forward.
We're talking to regional allies. It's very important now that there's a political settlement, a political way forward, and it's very, very important that we emphasise that civilians and minorities must be protected in this process. But very, very pleased that Assad has fallen.
India called for a peace and inclusive Syrian-led political process to bring stability to that country. In a statement, India's Minister of External Affairs stated that we underline the need for all parties to work towards preserving the unity, sovereignty and territorial integrity of Syria. We advocate a peaceful and inclusive Syrian-led political process respecting the interests and aspirations of all sections of Syrian society. China urged for a political solutions to be found in Syria as soon as possible to restore stability and order.
China is closely following developments of the situation in Syria and hopes that all relevant parties will act in the fundamental interest of the Syrian people and find a political solution to restore stability in Syria as soon as possible. The future and destiny of Syria should be decided by the Syrian people.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres hailed the end of Syria's dictatorial regime and urged the country to rebuild. While voicing concern, UN Human Rights Chief said any political transition in Syria must include accountability for those behind crimes committed under Assad's rule.
Any political transition must ensure accountability for perpetrators of serious violations and guarantee that those responsible are held to account. It is imperative that all evidence be collected and preserved meticulously for future use. Reform of the security apparatus will be key. This transition must also ensure that the tragedy of missing people is addressed.
European Union on Monday said it was not in contact with Islamist group HTS, which spearheaded the ouster of Bashar al-Assad, and will assess the group's word and actions when deciding whether to lift sanctions. Dheeraj Das reports for DD India.
And shifting gears, the Foreign Secretary of India, Vikram Misri, today conveyed India's concerns about security of the minority communities in Bangladesh. The Foreign Secretary called on the Chief Advisor of the interim government in Bangladesh, Mohammed Yunus, as well as the Foreign Affairs Advisor, Mohammed Tawheed Hussain. He did so in Dhaka. He also held the Foreign Office consultations with the Foreign Secretary of Bangladesh, Jashimuddin. And Foreign Secretary Misri said that the talks with Bangladesh gave India an opportunity to take stock of the situation there after the fall of the Sheikh Hasina government.
Amid unprecedented strain in bilateral ties over the targeting of Bangladesh's Hindu minority and the arrest of religious leader Chinmoy Krishna Das, India's Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri visited Dhaka on an official visit on Monday. He called on the Chief Advisor of the interim government of Bangladesh, Dr. Mohammed Yunus, and Foreign Affairs Advisor Mohammed Tawheed Hussain. He also held Foreign Office consultations with the Foreign Secretary of Bangladesh, Jashimuddin. Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri conveyed India's concerns about recent developments regarding the safety and security of minority religious communities in Bangladesh and urged the interim government to follow a constructive approach.
We also had the opportunity to discuss certain recent developments and issues, and I conveyed our concerns, including those related to the safety and welfare of minorities. We also discussed some regrettable incidents of attacks on cultural, religious, and diplomatic properties.
Foreign Secretary Misri highlighted India's support for a democratic, stable, peaceful, progressive, and inclusive Bangladesh. He reiterated India's willingness to build a positive and constructive relationship with Bangladesh based on mutual trust and respect and mutual sensitivity to each other's concerns and interests. The Foreign Secretary emphasized that people are the main stakeholders in India-Bangladesh relations and noted that India's development cooperation and multifaceted engagements with Bangladesh are all geared towards the benefit of the people of the neighboring country.
I emphasized that India desires a positive, constructive, and mutually beneficial relationship with Bangladesh. We have always seen in the past, and we continue to see in the future, this relationship as a people-centric and people-oriented relationship, one that has the benefit of all the people as its central motivational force.
During the Foreign Office consultations, both sides held comprehensive discussions on a wide range of issues covering political and security matters, border management, trade, commerce and connectivity, cooperation in water, power and energy sectors, development cooperation, consular, cultural and people-to-people ties. They also agreed to enhance consultations and cooperation to advance regional integration, including under the BIMSTEC framework. Misri is the first senior Indian functionary to travel to Dhaka since the caretaker administration led by Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus assumed office in August this year. With Naval Sangh Parmar, Bureau Report, DD India.
Still to come here on DD India News Hour. Taiwan on high alert after detecting Chinese warships near the island. UK Prime Minister Starmer visits Sheikh Zayed Grand Mosque in Abu Dhabi.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lin. Now, nearly 90 Chinese ships are hovering around waters near Taiwan. What exactly are they up to? Even though the US government is in the process of transition, the outgoing Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has reaffirmed the US's support for Taiwan to protect itself. DD India's Mihir Makuri explains what this proverbial muscle flexing is all about.
Tensions are escalating in the waters around the Taiwan Strait. Multiple formations of Chinese naval and coast guard vessels are on the move, signaling a potential show of strength from Beijing. Taiwan reports nearly 90 Chinese ships near its waters and the broader region, with around two-thirds being Navy vessels. This surge in activity follows Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te's unofficial stops in the United States, which sparked Beijing's fury. As a precaution, Taiwan has raised its alert level, bracing for possible military drills across the region. China has justified the deployments, asserting its commitment to defending its sovereignty. The Foreign Ministry was unequivocal in its stance.
First of all, I would like to tell you that there is no defense ministry in Taiwan. Taiwan is an inalienable part of China's territory. The question of Taiwan is an internal affair of China, and China will firmly safeguard its national sovereignty and territorial integrity.
In response, the United States reiterated its steadfast commitment for Taiwan. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin assured that Washington would continue to empower the island nation to defend itself.
Well, we've said all along that in accordance with the Taiwan Relations Act, and our commitment is that we will continue to help Taiwan attain the ability or the capability that it needs to be able to defend itself, and that's been our work throughout. We don't want to see any kind of unilateral change to the status quo in the Taiwan Strait. We've been very clear about that as well.
Despite heightened military activity, life in Taiwan remains calm. Citizens go about their routines, determined not to let panic disrupt their lives.
Some people might question why many Taiwanese seem too relaxed, but I believe that if panic leads to a decrease in our productivity or prevents us from living our normal lives, then we have already lost. Therefore, we should remain calm and live our lives normally while staying vigilant towards them, I mean China.
As the region braces for potential military drills, Taiwan's resilience remains unwavering, a reflection of its determination to stand firm in the face of mounting challenges. Mihir Makuri reporting for DD India.
The British Prime Minister Keir Starmer toured a mosque. He also met with the United Arab Emirates' president on Monday, marking his first trip to the region since taking office, seeking stronger economic and defense ties with the UAE as well as Saudi Arabia. The Prime Minister visited the Sheikh Zayed Grand Mosque and held a bilateral meeting with the UAE President Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan shortly after. Stability in the Middle East is expected to be high up the agenda during the visit, including the pressing need for a ceasefire between Israel and Gaza, the release of hostages, all of the hostages, as well as the urgent acceleration of aid into Gaza, the statement had added. Now later, the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer also arrived in Riyadh Airport in Saudi Arabia. This is his second stop after his visit to the United Arab Emirates, as he makes his first trip to the Gulf as the UK Premier. Starmer is seeking to attract investment from the region's oil-rich countries. That's what Downing Street has said. The US President-elect Donald Trump has called Russia's President Vladimir Putin to reach an immediate settlement with Ukraine. Trump urged the warring sides to stop the madness, saying that negotiations should begin, as he admitted he was actively working to end the near 3-year-old conflict. Russia says that it's open for negotiations, but it should be based on agreements reached in Istanbul in 2022. On the other hand, Ukraine seeks effective guarantees for peace. DD India's Raghav Kumar Jha puts into perspective Trump's vision for a ceasefire as well as the warring sides' response. Take a look.
President-elect Donald Trump's first in-person conversation with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and French President Emmanuel Macron at the reopening of Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris made it clear how Trump envisions ending the war in Ukraine. Trump called for an immediate ceasefire and negotiations between Ukraine and Russia, while calling on Russia to act in this direction. In a post on Truth Social platform, Trump wrote, and I quote, "Zelensky and Ukraine would like to make a deal and stop the madness. They have ridiculously lost 400,000 soldiers and many more civilians. There should be an immediate ceasefire and negotiations should begin. Too many lives are being so needlessly wasted, too many families destroyed, and if it keeps going, it can turn into something much bigger and far worse. I know Vladimir well. This is his time to act. China can help. The world is waiting." Reacting to Trump's call for an immediate ceasefire and negotiations, Kremlin said that Russia was open to talks on Ukraine, adding that peace negotiations had to be based on agreements reached in Istanbul in 2022 and on the current battlefield realities.
President Putin has repeatedly said that Russia is open for negotiations on Ukraine. Our position on Ukraine is well known. The conditions for an immediate stop of hostilities were set out by President Putin in his speech to the Russian Foreign Ministry in June of this year. It is important to recall that it was Ukraine that refused and continues to refuse negotiations.
In his reaction, Ukrainian President Zelensky said that peace was not just a piece of paper, but needed guarantees. He wrote on social media platform X, and I quote, "When we talk about effective peace with Russia, we must first and foremost talk about effective guarantees for peace. Ukrainians want peace more than anyone else." Zelensky also said that soon he will talk to US President Joe Biden to discuss Kiev's call for an invitation to join the NATO military alliance. The European countries are still backing Ukraine. Reiterating Paris' stated position on the issue, France's acting foreign minister said that it is up to Ukraine to decide when it's ready to negotiate with Russia on ending the war, and Kiev should do so from a position of strength. The United States also announced a new $988 million military assistance package for Ukraine on Saturday. Raghav Kumar Jha reporting for DD India.
Well, thousands of demonstrators in Seoul braved the cold once more to demand South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol be impeached on Monday, saying it was not enough to just apologize for trying to impose martial law last week. Yoon survived an impeachment vote on Saturday in Parliament after his botched attempt at imposing martial law last Tuesday, and tens of thousands of South Koreans then rallied in fact to demand his resignation. Now, protesters have also expressed anger and disappointment over Yoon's latest statement, where he said that he was leaving his political and legal fate to his ruling People's Power Party, but he's not going to resign. Earlier, the South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol was banned also from traveling abroad by the country's Official Corruption Investigation Office. Yoon, as we saw there, is under a probe for his declaration of martial law last week. and his grip on power has clearly weakened, with dissent growing among senior military officers. His own party says that it would establish a task force to handle his eventual resignation. Rajasthan is on the cusp of becoming the prime destination for investment driven by skilled workforce and expanding market. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated the Rising Rajasthan Global Investment Summit in Jaipur. And this next report by Vishal Barristow tells us how the day unfolded in Jaipur and the highlights of what the Prime Minister said at this investment summit.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated the Rising Rajasthan Global Investment Summit 2024 and the Rajasthan Global Business Expo at the Jaipur Exhibition and Convention Centre in Jaipur, Rajasthan. Addressing the gathering, Prime Minister highlighted that India was able to rise to 11th largest economy in the world after 7 decades of independence. But in just the last decade, India has risen to the 5th largest economy in the world.
हर इन्वेस्टर भारत को लेकर बहुत ही उत्साहित है। रिफॉर्म, परफॉर्म, ट्रांसफॉर्म के मंत्र पर चलते हुए भारत ने जो विकास किया है वो हर क्षेत्र में नजर आता है। आजादी के बाद के 7 दशक में भारत दुनिया की 11वीं सबसे बड़ी इकोनॉमी बन पाया था। उसके सामने पिछले 10 वर्ष में भारत 10th लार्जेस्ट इकोनॉमी से 5th लार्जेस्ट इकोनॉमी बना है।
PM said that the country has embarked on a new journey of self-reliant India, adding that the vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan was global and the impact was also global. Concluding his address, PM Modi urged all the investors to take up the resolution of Rising Rajasthan. The theme of the investment summit this year is Replete, Responsible, Ready. The summit will host 12 sectoral thematic sessions on the themes of water security, sustainable mining, sustainable finance, inclusive tourism, agri-business innovations, and women-led startups, among others. Vishal Barristow's report for DD India from Jaipur.
A major step towards women's empowerment with the launch of LIC's Bima Sakhi Yojana by the Prime Minister Narendra Modi in Panipat and Haryana. It aims to promote financial literacy and insurance awareness among women. Prime Minister Modi laid the foundation stone as well of a horticulture university. And this report by Ajay Mishra puts things into context.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi launched the Bima Sakhi Yojana at Panipat in Haryana to promote financial literacy and insurance awareness among women. This initiative of the Life Insurance Corporation of India will empower women aged between 18 to 70 years who are Class 10th pass, providing specialized training and a stipend for the first 3 years. During the function, the Prime Minister distributed appointment certificates to prospective Bima Sakhis. Addressing the gathering on the occasion, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that his government has taken unprecedented steps for women empowerment in the last 10 years. He said that with the launch of Bima Sakhi Yojana, the country has taken another step towards women's empowerment.
2047 के विकसित भारत के संकल्प की सिद्धि के लिए हमें ऊर्जा के ढेर सारे नए स्रोतों की जरूरत है। ऊर्जा का ऐसा ही एक स्रोत हमारा पूर्वी भारत है, हमारे भारत का नॉर्थ ईस्ट है, और ऊर्जा का ऐसा ही महत्वपूर्ण स्रोत है हमारे देश की नारी शक्ति, भारत की नारी शक्ति। भारत को विकसित बनाने के लिए हमें अतिरिक्त ऊर्जा, ये कोटि कोटि हमारी माताएं बहनें हैं, हमारी नारी शक्ति है, वही हमारी प्रेरणा की स्रोत रहने वाली है।
On this occasion, India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman said that the government has set a target to recruit over 2 lakh women under the Bima Sakhi Yojana in 3 years.
पहले साल हर महीना 7,000 रुपया, हर महीना 7,000 रुपया, फिर अगले साल हर महीना 6,000 रुपया होते हुए तीसरी साल हर महीने 5,000 रुपया हर महीना हर महिला को मिलेगा। ये सिर्फ बेसिक स्टाइपेंड है। इसके ऊपर महिला उनके अपने अपने कमीशन भी कमा सकते हैं। जितने बीमा वो करवा रही है उतना उनका कमीशन भी बढ़ेगा।
On this occasion, PM Modi also laid the foundation stone of the main campus of the Maharana Pratap Horticultural University, Karnal. The main campus and 6 regional research stations spread over 495 acres will be established. With Bureau Inputs, Ajay Mishra's report for DD India from Panipat.
And still to come here on DD India News Hour, a discussion with an expert on the implication of the fall of Assad's regime in Syria. India's Foreign Minister Jaishankar co-chairs the 4th India-Bahrain High Joint Commission meeting in Manama. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn, and going back to our story on Syria and the unfolding developments there, to put this all into context, we have Ambassador Dilip Sinha, former senior diplomat. Thank you very much, Ambassador Sinha, for being with us. Now, how will the opposition factions maintain unity and try and govern effectively? That's, I suppose, the biggest question.
Well, that's, as you say, Mark, a billion-dollar question. Syria has been ruled by different factions. The ruling party of Bashar al-Assad controlled about 50-60% at the best of times for the last 13 years of Syria. A large part, the Kurdish part, has been, about 25% has been autonomous under the Syrian Democratic Forces. And the northern part was partly under the control of the HTS and then the Syrian National Army.
Right.
So it's been a fractured country, and there is no indication at the moment of how these factions will come together. Of course, the initial indications in terms of the statements that we are receiving from the new party that has come to power of al-Jalani, that he'll form an inclusive government, but that is easier said than done. These factions have been at war with each other over the last so many years. And the countries backing them are also at loggerheads with each other. So given the situation, it will not be easy for them to come together.
So talking about those countries that are backing them, now what role will these external powers like Russia, Iran, Turkey, the US play in this post-Assad era?
Well, Turkey and Qatar have been the backers of the HTS. They would be sitting pretty and happy right now that their faction has come to power in Damascus. Russia, of course, is a loser because Bashar al-Assad has taken asylum in Moscow. Russia's main concern right now would be the continuation of its bases in Syria, which are extremely important for it. That the only access it has to the Mediterranean is through a port in the port of Tartus in Syria. So Russia will be concerned about that. The US is actually in a dilemma, although they are celebrating the fact that an autocrat, as they say, has been overthrown and a democratic force has come into power. But the fact is that al-Jalani is actually still a listed and a marked terrorist by the US and the UN itself. So it is very odd that they are celebrating the coming into power of a person that they regard as a terrorist on whom there is a bounty on his head of $10 million in the US. So how the US reconciles itself to this, as well as the fact that the US has traditionally been a backer of the Kurdish forces in Syria.
Right.
And there have already been some clashes between the HTS and the Kurdish forces. How America balances this will be a challenge for the Americans. They'll have to do a lot of careful walking here, and also how they see Turkey's increasing role in this place. Hezbollah, of course, has been terribly weakened, as has been Iran by the defeat. But then there are still, while some refugees of Syria are going back to Syria with the fall of Assad, some others actually leaving Syria. So there'll be a lot of turmoil can be expected in this region in the months to come.
So can the desire to, rebuild infrastructure with the help from outside forces which look like they want to help be a sort of a uniting factor amongst these factional groups?
It seems very difficult at the moment because the first thing that the HTS force would do is to consolidate its position both in Damascus and towards the Israeli and the Jordanian borders, just towards the south. It is a faction that was at one time affiliated with the Islamic State. I'm so sure some of the ideological leanings would still be present there. So while they claim to be to form an inclusive government which will look after the welfare of the people of all the people of Syria, there will definitely be a lot of retaliation and reprisals against the supporters of the Bashar regime. And then the fact that Israel has already occupied the disengaged zone of the UN and also some other territory of Syria will bring this new regime into confrontation with Israel. And you must remember that the leader of this party, Al-Jalani, has named himself as Nom de Guerre is after the Golan region where he was born. So all this does not augur well in the immediate short term for peace in the region. But if they are able to do that and start the task of rebuilding Syria, which has been very badly hit by this long civil war, it would be a great benefit and boon to the people of Syria.
So the civil war is still on. In fact, according to reports that I've read, that there's still fighting going on in the Kurdish areas in the northeast. They're trying to. The fact is that the Kurdish forces itself, how are they going to navigate their relationship since Turkey is supporting the HTS currently and other regional players?
Yes, that will in fact be the biggest challenge, because on the one side, the US is supporting the Syrian Kurds, and for Turkey, crushing the Syrian Kurdish movement is extremely important because the Turkish Kurds find shelter in the Syrian part. So it is important for them to get the HDS, the new regime in Syria, to take action against the Kurds in Syria, which would bring home to the US the contradiction between its support for the Syrian Kurds and for the HTS, especially because Turkey's position on this is extremely clear, that it wants the Kurdish forces in Syria to be crushed.
Ambassador Sinha, also, what measures do you think should be taken by the international community to address the humanitarian crisis? After all, the situation with refugees who had left over the last several years, people are now saying they should come back into Syria. And there are some who are still actually just hoping that they should get out right now. How should the world be looking at this problem?
Well, the humanitarian crisis in Syria is very serious. The country has, I believe, 90% of the population has fallen below the poverty line because of this long civil war. And almost 5.5 to 6 million people, Syrians, are living outside, nearly half of them in Turkey. Turkey, of course, would want them to go back to Syria so that the burden on Turkey is released. So that is the first challenge for the international community, create conditions within Syria for these refugees to go back. And the other is to ensure that do not have an outflux of refugees from Syria, the supporters of the Bashar regime and the members of the Alawite community to which Bashar belonged, because that would create another set of crises even before the present one has been resolved. So all that does present the international community with a huge challenge at a time when the war in both Lebanon, southern Lebanon, and Gaza continues. Present a challenge to the UN forces, to the humanitarian agencies of the UN to provide help to these refugees.
We leave it there. Thank you very much, Ambassador Dilip Sinha, former senior diplomat. Thank you for enlightening us on the bigger picture of how things are emerging in Syria. Well, India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh is in Russia, where he commissioned the Indian Navy's latest multi-role stealth guided missile frigate. It's called INS Tushil. He did so in Kaliningrad on Monday. The Indian Navy Chief, Admiral Dinesh Tripathi, accompanied the minister. The Defence Minister, in his address, described the commissioning as a proud statement to India's growing maritime strength and a significant milestone in the long-standing friendship between India and Russia, which are bound together, these two countries, by shared values, mutual trust, and special and strategic privileged partnership. India's newest stealth frigate is an upgraded Krivak 3 class frigate, and it's designed for blue water operations across the spectrum of naval warfare in all 4 dimensions. That's air, surface, as well as underground, or underwater rather, and electromagnetic. And it is armed with a range of advanced weapons, including the jointly developed BrahMos supersonic cruise missiles, the vertically launched Sitil surface-to-air missiles, as well as the enhanced Rangers, upgraded medium-range anti-air and surface gun with advanced stealth features. India's External Affairs Minister Jaishankar co-chaired the 4th India-Bahrain High Joint Commission meeting alongside the Foreign Minister Dr. Abdul Latif bin Rashid Al Zayani. This happened in Manama. The leaders took stock of bilateral relationship, focusing on trade, investments, healthcare, energy, security, tourism, and people-to-people ties. They also discussed new opportunities in space, education, fintech, and technology. The leaders also they exchanged views on the recent developments in the region.
We also cooperate closely on defense and security matters. India's joining of the Combined Maritime Forces, which is headquartered in Manama, will certainly be beneficial to strengthening regional maritime security. And we affirm our very firm commitment to the safety and security of international maritime activities. For us, Bahrain is a particularly valuable partner in the Gulf region.
Interacting with the Indian community in Manama, the External Affairs Minister Jaishankar said that India has always been opposed to terrorism and hostage-taking, which should never be excused or condoned. At the same time, he emphasized the importance of ensuring that any action taken by a government or armed forces must prioritize minimizing of civilian casualties.
As a country that itself has been impacted so deeply by terrorism, we are very strongly opposed to terrorism and hostage-taking. They should never be excused or condoned. But at the same time, it is very important that any action which is taken by any government or any armed force must always take care of civilian casualties, how to minimize civilian casualties, must always be respectful of humanitarian law, should cater for relief and looking after people who are affected in any operation.
The Modi government, through its mission of Digital India, has identified and weeded out more than 40 million fake LPG connections and more than 50 million public distribution scheme accounts. By connecting all far-flung areas, rural areas to the internet, as well as eliminating middlemen, the Modi government has saved more than $26 billion.
When Modi ji became our Prime Minister, हम लोग डॉक्टर दीनदयाल उपाध्याय का जो प्रिंसिपल था अंत्योदय का कि unless the person on the last rung of development, unless we bring him up to level, हम लोग का देश आगे नहीं बढ़ेगा. We've been constantly working on that principle. And our digital public infrastructure has been the biggest tool to help us achieve these goals. We finished corruption to a large extent. We increased our revenue by that. We can track our services. We can monitor our government processes. We brought in transparency. We brought in accountability, a reach to everyone, and we have succeeded in empowering people, whether they're in the urban areas or whether they're in the rural areas, by this connectivity जो गांव-गांव हम लोग भारतनेट के द्वारा by lakhs of kilometers of fiber optic cable जो लगाए जा रहे हैं.
And still to come here on DD India News Hour. A new airport in Noida near Delhi is going to ease air traffic in the national capital. And Golden Globe nominations have been announced. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. Noida International Airport has achieved a significant milestone with the successful completion of its validation flight on Monday. The flight, conducted by the Indian airline Indigo, verified the airport's approach procedures, confirming the accuracy and functionality of its navigational aids as well as the air traffic control systems. It demonstrates Noida International Airport's adherence to stringent safety and operational standards required for commercial operations. India's Civil Aviation Minister Kinjarappu Ram Mohan Naidu was present on the occasion. The year 2024 is set to go down in history as the hottest year since records began. And experts have warned that these extraordinary high temperatures are likely to persist in 2025 as well. This comes as the world grapples with the need to arrest or try and do something about climate action. Rahul Upadhyay reports.
Extreme weather events are witnessed across the globe in 2024. Scientists have predicted hot weather to continue into 2025. Conditions like drought, floods and heat waves occurred across the world. Earth's temperature hit a record high in 2024. The planet is 1.5 degrees Celsius hotter than pre-industrial times.
With 11 months of data for 2024, we are now virtually certain that 2024 will be the warmest year on record.
The data from the EU's Copernicus Climate Change Service comes 2 weeks after UN climate talks yielded a $300 billion deal to tackle climate change. The new benchmark affirmed by the C3S CAP scientists have linked these events to human-caused climate change. CO2 emissions are sharply rising despite nations' pledge.
For 2024, we are about to exceed that threshold of 1.5. Is a stark reminder that the climate is warming and that we really need to step up effort to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And if we look at the past year and a half, so that November 2024 is the 16-month and 17-month that we are above 1.5.
Scientists are monitoring the potential development of the La Nina weather pattern for 2025, marked by cooler ocean surface temperatures. While La Nina could temporarily lower global temperatures, it would not reverse the long-term warming driven by emissions. The world is currently in neutral conditions following the end of El Nino La Nina's warmer counterpart earlier this year.
A full-fledged La Nina event has not formed yet, and it's likely based on the model forecast. It's likely that if there's any La Nina event that forms, it will be a weak one, or there may not be one at all. I think we may stay in neutral conditions throughout the northern hemisphere summer.
This year's record-breaking temperatures serve as a stark reminder of the urgent need for global climate action. While the recent UN deal is a step forward, many argue it's only a fraction of what's truly needed. The question remains, will the world act fast enough to meet the challenge? Rahul Upadhyay's report for DD India.
The India Internet Governance Forum 2024, which has Innovating Internet Governance for India as its theme, is on in New Delhi. And this forum explores strategies for leveraging the internet to drive India's digital transformation while addressing governance challenges.
The India Internet Governance Forum 2024 brings together policymakers, industry leaders and experts to discuss the evolving landscape of internet governance in India. Delivering the keynote address, Jitin Prasad, Minister of State, Electronics and Information Technology, highlighted India's strides in fostering innovation, cybersecurity and e-commerce, stressing the importance of aligning internet governance with India's developmental priorities.
India Internet Governance Forum, IIGF 2024, a platform where we convene to deliberate on the future of internet governance, shaped by aspirations and ambitions of a digitally empowered India. This year's theme, Innovating Internet Governance for India, resonates deeply with our collective responsibility to ensure that the internet remains a driver of growth that is sustainable, inclusive, and equitable. The internet today is not merely a tool for connectivity, it is the backbone of our economies, society's individual aspirations.
In his special address, S. Krishnan, Secretary, Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, emphasized the need for robust policies to strengthen India's digital infrastructure and ensure equitable internet access.
We have 955 million users in India alone, and globally there are so many more. It has become a basic necessity for most people in their everyday life and everything that they do. It's very important that something which has become an essential part of everyone's everyday life is protected, conserved, made resilient, and we ensure that it is not weaponized against us.
Experts at the forum are engaging in panel discussions and workshops on topics such as data sovereignty, AI ethics, and digital inclusion, with a focus on creating a resilient and inclusive digital economy. The IIGF 2024 is a significant platform for shaping India's internet policies, paving the way for innovative solutions that address the governance. Kriti Vadera's report for DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. Let's get you the sports news now. And China's Ding Liren beat the Indian challenger D. Gukesh in the 12th game of the World Chess Championship 2024 on Monday. Ding hit back with a win in the 12th game right after losing the previous game to the teenage sensation Gukesh on Sunday. Game 11, Gukesh had stunned the world champion Ding with a breathtaking queen sacrifice, forcing him to resign on the spot. However, Ding has turned the tables in this game, playing a clinical game and winning in the end. Now, with two more games left, the World Championship is tied at 6 games all. India's Sports Minister, Dr. Mansukh Mandavia, felicitated the Indian team. This is after they had returned from the 10th Asia-Pacific Deaf Games in Malaysia. India had finished with a 55-medal haul at this tournament and had secured the 5th place out of 23 countries. The sports minister praised the athletes for their excellent performances. He wished them well in the future. The Indian team won 28 medals in athletics. That's the highest ever for them. And the team has also delivered an excellent performance in badminton, in chess, judo, table tennis and wrestling.
55 मेडल लाना छोटी बात नहीं है। कुल मिला के बहुत अच्छा आप लोगों का प्रदर्शन रहा है। जो सुविधा पैरालंपिक्स के लिए, ओलंपिक्स के लिए एथलीट को मिलती है, ये सारी सुविधा मेरे डेफ प्लेयर को भी मिलनी चाहिए। दोस्तों, मैं आपको एश्योर करता हूँ कि आपकी ट्रेनिंग के लिए, आपकी सुविधा के लिए, आपकी व्यवस्था के लिए कोई कमी नहीं रखी जाएगी।
डेफ गेम्स में पहली बार गई थी मलेशिया में, जहाँ पे मेरा टीम में सिल्वर मेडल और डबल्स में मेरा ब्रॉन्ज मेडल आया था। उसकी मुझे बहुत ज़्यादा खुशी है। और मैं सबसे यंग खिलाड़ी हूँ, मैं 16 साल की हूँ सभी खिलाड़ियों में। मेरा एम है कि 2025 में जो डेफलिम्पिक्स होंगे, जापान में होंगे, मैं आशा करता हूँ कि मैं वहाँ पे सिंगल, मिक्स टीम, डबल सब में गोल्ड लेकर आऊँ। मेरी पूरी मेहनत रहेगी और मेरा उसका ये पूरा एम है, मेरा लक्ष्य है।
Well, the musical thriller Emilia Perez and the post-World War II epic The Brutalist have topped the roster of films nominated on Monday for the 2025 Golden Globes, the Hollywood honors that kick off the movie awards season leading to the Oscars. Emilia Perez scored 10 nods and independent distributor A24's The Brutalist earned 7. Both movies will compete for the top honors at the Globes. That's the best film drama. With the papal selection also, the story Conclave and Bob Dylan's biopic A Complete Unknown, the sci-fi epic Dune Part 2, historical drama Nickel Boys and September 5, the story of sports journalists who covered a hostage crisis at the Olympics. The box office smash Wicked, adapted from a long-running Broadway play about witches in The Wizard of Oz, landed 4 nominations. It faces dark romantic comedy, Anora, and others in the Best Movie, Musical or Comedy category. Winners of the Golden Globes will be chosen by 334 entertainment journalists from 85 countries, compared with roughly 9,000 voters who select the Academy Awards. And there's good news also for India, as Payal Kapadia has made history at the Golden Globe Awards. The filmmaker has been nominated for the Best Director of a Motion Picture for her film All We Imagine as Light. The film won the Grand Prix at the Cannes Film Festival of 2024. And for the first time in history, an Indian director has been nominated for the Best Director at the Golden Globes. The film also received a nod for the Best Motion Picture Non-English Language category. Well, India's public broadcaster Prasar Bharati recently launched Waves, which is an OTT platform. Waves provides a complete infotainment ecosystem to digital media and OTT audiences. If you want great content, then you can just download Waves today. Thanks very much for watching. Namaskar.